Welcome to this quick guide where I'm going to show you how to make Windows 11 look more like Windows 10. Now to make Windows 11 look more like Windows 10, we'll need to use a simple tool called Explorer Patcher, and you can get that by opening up your web browser and then going to this GitHub page, which is the Explorer Patcher GitHub page by Valinet. And I'll also include this link in my written guide, which will be the first link in this video's description, so you can go ahead and get it from there. But once you're on this GitHub page, you can scroll down until you get to the Releases tab here on the right, and then click on the latest release. Once you're on the Releases tab, just scroll down until you find the ep_setup.exe file, and then click on that to download it. Once it's finished downloading, you can click on this file to launch it. Accept any user account control prompts if you do get any. And then it might look like your computer is frozen for a while, but it's just the Explorer Patcher busy installing all of the necessary components. Just give it some time and eventually your taskbar and Explorer will come back. Now once you see your taskbar icons appear again, it means Explorer Patcher is now finished installing. And at this point, it already looks a little bit more like Windows 10, but there are a lot of settings that we still need to change to get that Windows 10 look. For instance, if we click on the Start menu, the Windows 11 Start menu still opens in the middle of the screen. And we also have this Control Center button down here, which still opens this Windows 11 interface. So to access the Explorer Patcher properties, right-click anywhere on an empty white space on the taskbar, and then select Properties, and then you'll get to the Explorer Patcher properties. Now let's start in the Start menu, and here you can change the Start menu style to Windows 10. You can change the position on screen to at screen edge, which means it will open here on the left of the screen. And then there are some other additional options that you can also change here, but I'm just going to leave this on the default and then go ahead and click on Restart File Explorer. And if I click on the Start menu now, it resembles the Windows 10 Start menu, and you can also go ahead and unpin these tiles and move these tiles around just like you were able to on Windows 10, and you also have the list of apps like you did on Windows 10. Next, if we move on to the taskbar and we go to the taskbar tab in the Explorer Patcher properties, we have the taskbar style set to Windows 10. Now here you can choose to move the taskbar to another location on the screen. For example, if you wanted to have the taskbar at the top, you can change that to top and then just restart the File Explorer, and then the taskbar position will be changed. I'm just going to leave that on the default, which is the bottom. Here you can show or hide the search button on the taskbar. I'll keep that enabled, but I'll disable the task view button. And then you can also automatically hide the taskbar here if you wanted to do that. You can change the start button style from Windows 10 to Windows 11 if you wanted to. I'll just leave that on Windows 10. And then here you also have some other advanced options. The only ones I change here is to combine the taskbar icons. So by default, if you use Explorer Patcher, you'll have these labels on any of the taskbar items that are open. And some people prefer to have it this way. I just feel it takes up too much space. So I always change this setting to always combine for both primary and secondary taskbars. Once you're done with that, you can go ahead and click on Restart File Explorer again. Now, if we move over to the System tray, I'll go to the System tray in the Explorer Patcher properties. And here you have a bunch of options that you can choose from. What I normally change here is I hide the Control Center button, which is that little gear icon right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and restart File Explorer to get rid of that gear icon. Now, if we click on the notification pane, we'll see it's still the Windows 11 notification pane. And as far as I know, there's no way to change that in these settings. But if we move on to the calendar, you'll see we have the Windows 10 calendar here on Windows 11. If we click on the sound icon, we have the Windows 10 sound interface here. And if we click on networks, we also have the Windows 10 network interface right here. And if we click on the little arrow to show the hidden icons, we have the normal Windows 10 system tray right here. Now here you also have some other options. For example, if you right click on the network icon and then open the network and internet settings, it'll take you to the Windows 11 settings. You can actually change that by changing this setting, and you can change that to open network and sharing center in control panel or network connections in control panel. I'll set it to network and sharing center in control panel. And if I right click on the network icon and then open the network and internet settings, it'll open to the network and sharing center in the control panel. Now in the system tray, you have a lot of options here. I'll just keep all of this on the default, which is Windows 10, but I'll just show you that you can change these to some of the other versions of Windows, like Windows 8, for example, or even Windows 7. For example, if we change the clock to Windows 7, if I click on the time and date, it'll show the Windows 7 clock. So if you want to go even further back, you can change some of these settings back to Windows 7. If we go to the File Explorer tab, here I recommend clicking on Register as Shell extension. You might get a user account control prompt, just click on Yes. Now here you can disable the Windows 11 context menu, which is the right-click menu. And if you select this option and restart File Explorer, and then go ahead and right-click, you'll have the Windows 10 right-click menu. You can use the legacy file transfer dialog, and you can use classic drive groupings in this PC and change the control interface to Windows 10 ribbon. Now what this means is if we restart File Explorer and we open up a File Explorer window, you'll see this command ribbon resembles Windows 10 and not Windows 11. If I just change this back to Windows 11 and restart the File Explorer, this is the new command ribbon they've added to Windows 11, which has all of these icons instead of text, and you also have tabbed layouts. Now I'm pretty sure if you do change this to the Windows 10 ribbon, you lose access to the tabbed layouts. And yes, you do, but if you want your Windows 11 to look like Windows 10, it's one of those things you're going to have to live with. And then here you also have some additional options that you can check. I'll just leave this navigation bar disabled and then click on Restart File Explorer. And now the File Explorer looks a lot more like Windows 10 than Windows 11. Next, in Windows Switcher, which is the Alt-Tab Windows Switcher, you can change this to Windows 10 as well. And you also have access to some other options here. But now that's changed to the Windows 10 Alt-Tab style. You can also change the weather widget if you're someone who uses that. I don't use that, so I'm just going to leave that disabled. And in other, you also have some other options here. The only ones I really check here to make it more like Windows 10 is to disable rounded corners for applications. And if you click on that, you might get a user account control prompt. Just click on Yes to accept it. And then next, I also disable quadrants when snapping windows. And I prevent these 4 control panel links from being redirected to the settings app. So what that means is if you do go to control panel, and you click on one of these links, let's say system for example, let's say I click on system, it'll take me to the Windows 11 settings app, but I prefer to access the old legacy panels, so I'm just going to select all of these options. And now if I click on system, I'll be redirected to the old panels that you used to get in the earlier versions of Windows. Next, in the updates tab, you can check for updates or just update the program and restart File Explorer. In the advanced tab, you also have some other advanced settings. Like it says here, only change these settings after reading the documentation about them. So I'm just going to leave all of that on default. And then in the about tab, what you can do here is, if you're happy with all of the settings that you've set up, you can export your current settings to a registry file and give it a name and save it on your computer somewhere. And once these settings have been exported, if you do reinstall Windows or you want to use this exact setup on another computer, you can just install Explorer Patcher again and then import these settings that you saved in this registry file. Now lastly, if you do want to change the wallpaper, you can just download the Windows 10 wallpaper from a website like Wallpaper Cave. And once you have that downloaded, you can just right click on it and then click on Set as Desktop Background, and then you'll have the Windows 10 desktop background on Windows 11. So I do hope this guide on how to make Windows 11 look more like Windows 10 helped you out. Please like the video and watch any of my other helpful guides on this channel, and I'll see you in the next one.